Hello friends, welcome back to this fourth lecture on the course on consumer psychology. Now in the last lecture we were looking at the first part of the EKB model, which is how do consumers actually search information and why do consumers actually search information. So these are the two things that we are looking at. And in the third lecture, which is the one before this, we looked at how does consumer realize that they have a need for buying a particular product. So something related to need arousal, and we looked at several factors which make a consumer realize that they have a need for buying a particular product. Now we did introduce a little bit about information search in the last lecture, and so in the present lecture what the focus would be is on looking at how does the consumer actually go into the marketplace and search for information. And we look at a number of psychological factors which basically modulate the search of the consumer for product information. Now we had discussed before that any product information search is dependent on what kind of product the consumer is looking at. And so if the consumer is looking at a high involvement product, he goes through all the 5 steps of the EKB model, and so here the search is of a longer duration, of more intensity, and a deeper search. Whereas if the consumer is looking at a product which is low involvement, which he doesn't has to get involved with at a level of basically the price or information or anything, but there he doesn't has to go through the whole EKB model, the whole steps of EKB model, and he can directly go from need recognition to product comparison and buying the product. So the special case that we are dealing here is the high involvement products. Now also in the last lecture we looked at how does the need recognition happens, the need arousal happens, and once the need arousal has been established based on the actual and the desired state in the consumer, he goes on and search for information. We looked at what kind of things are possible for the search. So let's focus on today's lecture. We will look into how these searches for information of high involvement products or products happen to the market, and what are the factors which actually influence this search process of the consumer. So types of information search which the consumer goes through. There are several types of information search which the consumer can actually go through in the market. The first of these is called the pre-purchase information search. Now in the pre-purchase information search, what happens is the consumer actually starts looking for information about the products, looking for more variety of products, looking for whether a product is available or whether it can satisfy his needs or not, and how fit is the product for his needs. All these information he starts looking even before he starts buying that product, and that kind of information search is basically the pre-purchase search. So taking an example, suppose you are interested in buying a new camera which you need for an upcoming trip to abroad or anywhere for your holidays. Now when you are buying a particular camera and you need a particular camera, you understand that there is a need for a particular camera, you can get involved in a pre-purchase search, which basically means that even before buying the camera, what you do is you look at several information about the camera that you'll need. So you look at several models which are there, you look at several product benefits which are there, which will satisfy your actual need, and all that kind of information is called the pre-purchase search. So the basic idea here is that before the product is delved into, is bought, a search happens, and that is called the pre-purchase search. Now within the pre-purchase search there are a number of pre-purchase types which are there. The first is directed information search, and directed information searches are purposeful and deliberate in nature. What does it really mean? Now when a consumer is very sure of what he wants and the product has some meaning to him, which is of a high cost or something which has his direct involvement, or he is interested in the product a lot, he goes for something called directed information searches. So suppose I am one of those people who is interested in buying a new smartphone, and I am very much involved with my new smartphone, or with the fact that I like a smartphone and it is very personal to me. So what I'll do is, in those cases where I am very involved with a smartphone, or it is very dear to me, or it is an inherent part of my life, is going to decide something which is very inherent in my life, I'm going to do something called a purposeful and deliberate search. So what I'll do here is I'll look at the needs that has been arose for buying that particular cell phone. I'll look at the product benefits that the products in the market are going to offer, and I'll do an actual comparison and search for all the benefits that products in the market can deliver to me, and how good the benefits that their products are giving in the market, how good a fit it is with my need arousal, or it is with my need for the particular product. And so here the information search will be directed information search, because it is deliberate, because I started it with the idea that since the product is very essential to my life, very essential to my living, I will do a directed and purposeful search. So not in all cases the consumer is so much involved with the product. It's not that the product becomes or is very inherent to him, and he doesn't do a product deliberate search. Deliberate searches are generally for those items which the consumer really needs or really wants. And so at times what happens is searches, product information searches, also happen through something called browsing, which may eventually lead to purchasing. So on one category, on one hand, when I need a product, I know that I need a product, I have a need of a product, I understand what are the benefits that I need, I look at the market of the products that are there, I look at the benefits that they are offering, I do a one-to-one comparison of what each product is going to do, I make a choice and I make a search accordingly, and this is called the deliberate search. But at times when you are in the market, whether it is a virtual market or whether it is a physical market like a shopping store or a showroom or anywhere, you may just be browsing, right? So at that point of time the need is not that powerful, the need of a product is not that powerful, so you may just be browsing at products, and so what happens is immediately a needs get arise. And so one example that comes to my mind right here is something called opportunity cost. So you are there in this superstore, you're looking at different kind of clothes which are there, you already have clothes, it's not that you have clothes and there is no actual need of buying a particular cloth at any point of time, you're just browsing through a number of shirts which are there in the clothes showroom, and suddenly something strikes you, or suddenly something appeals to you and you buy it, or offer comes in and you buy it. And so this is called browsing. So you are just going around products, finding products, and it eventually you get stuck with a particular product, like it, and it may be that products you have never thought about, so you have never conceived that you're going to buy, you just went to the superstore and some products appeal to you, and that is called, and you actually started looking into it and then found a need for it and then brought that particular thing, or found more information about that particular thing. Here it is called browsing related search. So here what happens is, and it may be possible that browsing may not lead to purchase. So even for the sake of just being there, you saw a product and started finding information about it, that is called browsing. So things like when you are in an electronic market and so you see something new, for example the Apple Cube, and so there is no need for you to buy the Apple Cube, but then you start gathering information about it, and this is called browsing related information search. You went there, you browsed through the product and you started collecting information. So what is the difference? The difference is in directed information search, you are after a product and you search information for it. In browsing, you are there, you are looking at it and you start collecting out of the blue information about the product. And the third kind of information search that is here is called accidental information search. A consumer is not looking for anything in particular, is drawn to a product, and so in browsing you are actually interacting with the product, you are actually looking through the product and collect information, whereas in accidental search you are just there and suddenly something makes interest to you, or suddenly you get something interesting and you buy that particular thing, or you start looking for information about that particular thing. So the major difference between browsing and accidental product search is that in browsing you were actually interacting with the product, you were somehow a little bit interested in the product, and so you started collecting it of it, but you have no desirability as such of the product. But in accidental search you had never in the mind to look at the product at any level, but then the product appeals to you out of the blue, out of nowhere, and you start collecting information from it. So you never thought that the product would be there in the first place, accidentally you hit upon it. And so all these kind of searches that I've been talking about is actually the pre-purchase information search, and here the search happens even before you start the purchase process or you start comparing products. There is also something called post-purchase information search. So what is post-purchase information search? A consumer who's already made up a purchase continues to gather information and or evaluate other options. So here there can be two basic things that I can think about why consumers would go for a post-purchase information search. One reason could be that the consumer is so much involved with the product, is such an expert in the product that he wants to collect more information related to the product, and so he goes for something called post-purchase information search. So he, even after buying that product, using the product, he is satisfied, but he still collects more information about the product. Why? Because he is very much involved with the product, because he is really interested in the product. The other reason is that sometimes people collect post-purchase information, or people do post-purchase information search, is because the product that they have bought is actually somewhere involved with the status symbols, and so or somewhere involved to the prestige symbols, and so they do the search. Why? Because they want to find out how many other people have actually purchased this product, and so where they stand in the ladder of this social demographic, and so in this societal ladder of prestige. So they're looking for that information, and so they're collecting information to find out where they are in this particular group. And so those are the reasons that I can think of right now as the reason. There could be other reasons also. These are the two psychological reasons that I can think of here that can lead someone to search for information after buying a product, after you have particularly bought a product, used it, and you are satisfied with this. The third type of information search that can happen is something called ongoing information search. And what is ongoing information search? Here what really happens is that the consumer searches right from the point of the pre-purchase search to when he is actually using the product, and even if he has the product, he has used it, he is fully satisfied, still the search goes on. So consumers observe and stay current with what is happening, and so in this case what really happens is the search goes on, right? So even if even before buying the product, till you are using the product, and after even the consumption happens, consumers actually go with finding information. So who actually are interested? People who are very highly involved, or product experts, product people who give comments on products. These are the people, or people who are really they think that the product matters to them a lot. So those kind of personality, those kind of people actually go on for something called ongoing product search, or people who are really involved with the product. For that should be the baseline. Also, this product search that I've been talking about can be of two types. So how do consumers actually search for product? A consumer can actually do something called an internal search for product, or he can do an external search for product. Now what is the difference between an internal search for product and external search for product? In an internal search for product, what the consumer does is that consumer looks at his experiences and memory, and so the key term that we have to be aware about in this particular search type is that the consumer basically depends, or the consumer basically searches his memory and experiences from the past, and that is how he learns about the product or does the product search. So basically internal search, information search, involves no source other than the consumer's own memory, knowledge, and experiences. So you are out there looking for a particular kind of brand, you have heard about this brand, or maybe use that particular brand, and so when you are buying, you just search for your memory whether this brand has certain features that you are looking for, or you ask your memory whether when you have used this product before, whether it is satisfied you in a certain way or not, and that kind of information search is called internal information search. And to be pointed out here is the fact that experts of any product or product line, or any kind of product information providers who are experts, they do more of an internal search. So experts are consumers who are gained extensive prior knowledge through experience and training, and so experts who are the ones who have extensive knowledge of any product, who has received training about any particular product, or who gathers more information about a product, who is well aware of what a product can do, of all its benefits and all, they generally tend to use more of internal search. So what they tend to do is look at a number of information about the product, store it in memory in a very dedicated way. They use something called mental sets for storing this information about product related information, and they generally rely on internal search for buying products or giving advices on products. On the other hand, there are called novices, which who are consumers who have little or no prior knowledge or experience with a product or service category, and so these people generally don't trust the internal memory for looking at product information. So novices are those people who have never used the product, they have never been interacting with the product at all, they are very new to the product, they know only about some features of the product, and they are attracted to the product basically based on one or two features. And so these are the same people who have very less knowledge about the particular product or service category. And so what they tend to do then, how do they gather information about the product that they are looking at or service that they are thinking of getting involved with? What they do is they do a lot of external search. They don't trust their memory, they don't trust the experiences, because they have no memory of the product. Whatever memory they have is still fragile, it's not very trustworthy, and so they go into the market and search for information, and that kind of search is called the external search for information. So let's now look at in what cases the external search for information is promoted. In what cases of buying a product or interacting with a product or searching for information on product would promote more of an external search. And as you can see here, there are a number of psychological factors which decides what will lead to high external search or need for external search. Now, how would be the market if everybody had enough information in their memory about a product, and so they don't need this external search. They don't need to go into the market, read book reviews, read editorial content, look at advertisement. If they knew about everything about the product, it will be a perfect world. But that's not how it is, because most of us are novice. We know a little information about some products that we involve with. There are hundreds and thousands of products which are out there which we don't know. There are hundreds and thousands of services which are out there which we don't know. Right. And so when the need for those services and products arise, and when we want to get information, we need to do a lot of external search, or in search in the market or search in the external environment. And so what we're trying to see here is those psychological factors which actually promote this kind of an external search, not depending on memory but rather depending on information in the market. So satisfaction with the past experience. If somebody has a good level of satisfaction with the past of a particular product, then the need for external search is very low, because what will happen then is that this person will actually be more involved with the product, will be liking the product a lot, and so will not go for any kind of external search, because he is totally satisfied, and consumer satisfaction is what it is all about. So if you are satisfied, if the product is delivering you whatever you are looking at, you do not need to go for external search. On the second is the time since the last decision. If the time that you have that has elapsed between the last time you bought the product or you decided to buy the product and the actual product purchase is very high, then there is a very high need for external search. Now, what is the reason? The reason is that over time a lot would have changed, not only external factors into the environment, some other factors related to price, availability, and so many other things, or product descriptions, so many things would have been changed, and so the product search, external search for information increases. Similarly, changes on alternatives. So what would happen here is, if a number of alternatives, so if a product has just one alternative, the most desirable thing for any marketer is that he has a single product, and that product offers all the benefits and there are no competitors, and that's the best situation for any marketer and any consumer, just one bit of information to look at. But if there are a number of alternatives are there, if a number of products are there which is offering the same kind of benefit that is fulfilling the need of the consumer, then in those cases a need for search is more, because the consumer has to do something called alternative evaluation. He has to decide between what to buy and what to not, and for that the need for external search is very high, because only by doing external search he will be able to find out the one reason why he has to reject a product and accept a product. Also, if a problem is new, sometimes what happens is newer problems arises, and this can happen due to changes in situations. Suppose you move from college to a job, and so new problems will come in, and here the problem is new, and so for decision you have to making or product information you have to do high search. In college, food was served in the campus, in your hostels, and so the need for search of what is being cooked or what is not is very less, or need for and finding food related information is very less. But when you move from college into a job where you actually have to cook, or you actually have to manage your own cooking, then this food related information is very high, and you have to do a lot of external search to find out what gets cooked and what is the price of something, and so on and so forth. So basically, distinction that I'm trying to do here is the problem is new, that can happen through a number of factors, number of lifestyle factors, or a number of psychological factors that can lead to high external search. Quality of relevant information. If the quality of relevant information is very high with you in your mind or memory, then there is no need for external search or external information search which is there. And similarly, which is the quantitative information. If the kind of information that you're looking at, the amount of information that you're looking at about a product is high, is sufficient in your internal search, in your memory and experiences, then there is a very low chance of somebody actually doing an external search. So the next thing that we want to look at is something called external information search. So up till now we have looked at what is internal information search, and what we are looking at now is external information search, which is searching for information in the market. So when does that happen? And I give you several reasons when that happens, when the consumer actually needs to go into the market and search. It is not that only novices go into the market and search for external information about a product. Also sometimes experts have to go into the market and search for more product related information, and that happens when a new product, a product that they are not aware of, or a product related feature that they are not aware of comes out, and so they have to go into the market. So let's look at all those factors which actually goes ahead and increases or basically modulates the external information search. And so we will be discussing 3 or 4 different kind of factors. Let's start with situational factors. A number of situational factors around the consumer, around the user of a product actually determines the increase in external information search. So basically, any external information search should have 4 things. Anybody who is having or who is doing an external information search in the market, he should possess 4 things. What are these? First, the ability to search. Does the consumer has an ability to search? If the consumer doesn't have an ability to search, if the consumer doesn't has that particular required things that are required for making the search, then the external search is not taken to. Now, how does the ability to search gets influenced? For example, it could be that a small child is there, and so he wants to get information. Now he cannot go into the market alone and do the search, and so here the ability to search is very low. Or it could be that as an old person wants something, right, and he has a lesser ability. So these are physical things. Sometimes it is that the particular product is available and it is only available through online. For example, let's say there are certain cell phones which are only available online, and so no matter how much you want, you don't have the ability to do the search because the product is coming from you for somewhere. And sometimes people don't have the ability to search, right, or the ability, or sometimes they have the ability to search. So 4 factors which basically decide how this external search is going to go. First thing, that anybody does an external search, he should have the ability to do the search. He should have the motivation to search. If somebody doesn't have the motivation, he doesn't have enough energy to look for the product that he is looking at, a need is there but he is not interested in it, he doesn't have that motivation to look for into it, that drive to want that product, then he will not do external searches. Cost of the search. If the cost of an external search is very high, right, if you want to buy get information about a product, but the financial cost is very high, the risk is very high, the psychological cost is very high, you have to travel long distances finding information, you have to invest a lot of money to get information. In those cases, people don't do external search and benefits from the search. It may so happen that you look for information, you go into the market, you get the information, but the information is not worthwhile, and in those cases people have very less benefits and they don't do a lot of information search, external search, when the benefit is very less. So a number of factors are there which actually decide how this external search of information about products goes on. And so within the situational influences, the first thing we can look into is called perceived value of the search. What does perceived value of the search really mean? The perceived value of the search actually means that how much value the search for the product has to the person. What does it translate to? It translates to how much need does the person have of that particular product. The more the value, the more the utility of this particular product to the person, the more the need for this particular person, the more he will do the external search. So the more the utility, the more the search. If the utility is less, the search is very less. So for high involvement products, for products which are something which is a must for somebody to buy, which is a must for somebody to use, in those cases the search is very high and the need for external search is very high. The second factor is ease of acquiring information. It is not only that how much utility any information about a product has for you which will decide a search. The other factor that is responsible here is the ease of acquiring. How easily can you get information? At times product information is available in the market, but the ease of acquiring it is very low, or it is very difficult to acquire. It's very difficult to get the information. So there is a workshop about a particular product which is going on, but it is, say, 300 kilometers from where you live, or it is at a distance where you cannot reach. There is no communication, there is no way to reach to it, right? And if those cases, or webinars which are there where it's difficult for you to log on and get product related information, right? So if those are the things, then people don't do a lot of external search. Now within this ease of acquiring, there is something called information control. Consumers wish to have some control over what information they are exposed to, how long it will be presented to them, and what information will follow. What happens is, when I am giving product related information, I should be very certain of what information I am giving, and and how they are related, and how long the information is, and what is the information that is going to follow. That is why when you see advertisements, the first time when an advertisement comes in, it is generally 2 minutes to 1.5 and 2 minutes. But generally speaking, 2 minutes is a long time for human memory to capture any kind of information or extract any kind of gist information. And that is why the first advent of the first instance of advertisement is generally 2 to 3 minutes, but then afterwards, when the same advertisement comes in, you generally see it for 30 seconds. Most advertisements are 30 seconds, 15 seconds, or 25 seconds, because this is the only period of time where an attentional shift will be there, when your attention will be focused onto that advertisement and you can gather information from it. And so all unnecessary part of an advertisement is cut down, only product related information and some kind of interaction of the person who's doing the advertisement is put into. And that is one reason what I'm talking about. So information control. Consumers don't want unnecessary information or information that is of no use to. And so how much information control is the marketer doing will decide how much external search the person is doing. At times the advertisement is made in such a way that through information control, that the consumer has to do certain works for getting the information, right? So remember all those ads which have a hidden meaning kind of, or a hidden kind of a thing, where one advertisement leads to the other and other, and then finally you find the information. So those is raising curiosity, and so human beings by nature being curious gets interacted with them. And so with the control of the information, with the control of unnecessary parts of an information in an ad, what the manufacturer will do is that he'll control the information that reaches the consumer. At times in this ploy, information control is actually used to promote products and hide some of the weakness of a product. So information control is another interesting part of situational influence. Another situational influence which actually decides or basically leads to more information external search is basically called the cost of external search. And here the benefit versus price kind of a equation is done by most consumers. So what consumers actually see is that how much cost is he going to pay in terms of getting information, external information of a product. If the information that he is getting of a product from the external environment, so if this is the external environment, and if the information is very high, and this information has rich or this information is rich in most questions or answers most questions that he has about his products, in those cases he is going to search for that information. So the price that he is going to pay and the benefit that he is going to get from this information search, they are equated, and the more the benefit, lesser the price, the more the information search. So some of the prices, some of the costs that can actually consumers spend of in information, external information search is something called financial search. At times the information about a particular product may incur financial cost. You would have to pay dollars from your pocket for getting information, and in those cases the consumers actually look at what is the benefit that is going to get. So you are paying for getting information, but the information is not beneficial. Those kind of situations, external information is not promoted. Also, one of the costs that the consumer has to incur in getting external information is something called time cost. At times, at certain situations, you have to invest your time into getting information, and when the time that you're investing is more, the time that you're investing for getting information is beyond your use, or beyond the time that you can devote, in those cases the time cost is very high. There is something called decision delays. At times what would happen is the information that has been provided to you by the marketer actually delays your decision about buying a product, or some way it delays your decision in making up your mind to buy a product, and in those cases the not buying the product, not getting the benefit of the product is very high, and the price that that you pay, the decision delay is not getting the product. And so in those cases the external information search is not decided, or is high or low depending on how much the decision delay is. Then there are something called physical costs. When you search for information, there is generally physical cost. You have to move from a place to, whether it is moving from one place to another place, or moving from one showroom to another showroom, one environment to another environment, and this kind of physical costs are there, and these physical costs are also an addition, or also a factor which decides how much external search information search will be there. More the physical cost, lesser the external information search. Psychological costs, stress, anxiety, things like hypertension, these things can arise from looking for information. At times you are looking for information, the information is not available, and you get a lot of stress, and due to this stress a lot of anxiety is there. A lot of anxiety leads to unwell situations, or not less concentration, and these things can actually lower the information, external information search. When you are looking for information is not available, the more you look, the more your anxiety will become, the more deeper you go, the lesser information you get, and so this leads to a number of psychological changes or psychological cost that can bear upon you, and so you will lessen the external information search. Lesser the psychological cost of an external information search or information search, more the consumer gets involved with it. And then information in overload. At times what happens is the marketer gives you unnecessary information about products, right, that you don't need. You need a product for a particular thing, you get unnecessary information, the unnecessary information drives you somewhere else, and so in those cases the cost for search is very high, information search, and so consumers don't actually look for those particular manufacturers which load you with a lot of information, because that costs on you. A high information load will actually leads to more cognitive resources being used, and when more cognitive resources being used, it's not a very good thing for most consumers, and so they move away from external information search. Now there are two types of capitals to be discussed, which is related to these costs of how much cost somebody has to pay for external information search. Now one is called information capital, is the information about a product, attribute, benefits, and prices learned by consumer in the past that can still be used in the current. So more information capital a consumer has, the lesser he will actually go ahead and do external information search. So information capital, if more information is available to him in the past, the searches will be decided, the external information searches will be decided on how much information he has. The more information he has in memory, the chances of search will be equally decided based on that. So how much information in capital, or how much previous information about product related benefits, product related information the consumer has, that will decide the search. Also skill capital is related to how to search. The better a consumer is at a search, the better the consumer knows how to do the actual information search in the market, the more external search will be influenced by it, and the more in external search the consumer is going to do. So how much skill capital, how much skill does the consumer has in searching information, because there is a lot of information which is available with the product, and from that information the consumer has to pick up those information which is relevant to it. Now within this information which is available out there, there are irrelevant information, a lot of irrelevant information. So this process of filtering what is necessary for you and what is not necessary for you requires consumer certain skills, and the more skill a consumer has, the more chances that he will do high information search, or basically information search has some relations to this skill capital. Now, there are also some kind of risks which are actually related to purchase related decisions. Whenever somebody buys something, there is a number of risks which are involved with it. So, cost is one thing where you pay something for purchasing, so benefit versus price kind of equation. In the risk thing, whenever you make a purchase, there is always certain risk, because no purchase is risk free. It may happen that the product that you are looking for, it has all the benefits but it doesn't work, and in those cases a number of risks are involved. And so how much risk taking a consumer is will decide whether he will go for external search or not. So external information search is also dependent on a number of risks. For example, functional and performance risk. If I look at these situations where if I buy product X, what is the chance that it is going to perform and what is not, and so this is one of the risks which people have to take. Financial risk. If I invest on buying a product, a part of my money is going, and so how much risk am I going to, how much risk is the particular product offering. Psychological risk. When I particularly buy a product and then the product gives me more anxiety, I buy a toaster but it is not working, and so the more it is not working, the more frustration is generated in me. I am getting more psychologically unstable, so I will not look for those products, right? Social, and when I call up the call center, they are not listening, so that creates a lot of frustration, and so I will not buy that product. The risk is more. Social factors. Social risks are also a part of risk which are out there, and which decides how much information search or external information search is there. Now, social risk could be if I buy a product and I am not accepted by people around me, I am not liked by people around me, I lose my prestige, I lose my social standing, and so if that is high, if the product is buying a product leads there's this particular factor to be high, social risks to be high, I will not do an external information search. Physiological risk. It could be that I buy a product and that gives me a shock. Right. So, I buy an electric product, it gives me a shock. I buy a particular mechanical product, it doesn't work, it gives me some kind of a hurt, a physical hurt, and so on and so forth. In those cases, what could happen is the physical or physiological risk is very high, and so I don't buy the product, or I buy the product, and that depends upon the that decides my external risk. The more physiological risk a particular product is offering to me, the lesser the external information search. Time risk. It may happen that a certain amount of I don't know how much time a search is going to take, and so the risk is very high. The more time I invest, the more time is less time is available for other things, and so when the information that you are looking for, external information that you are looking for, you don't know how much time it's going to do, or it is going to take. In those cases, consumers actually do not do external search, do not promote external search. And link decisions. If I buy a particular product, and if that particular product is going to make me buy something else, and make some and that something else is again going to promote something else, in those cases the risk is very high. So if I know that I am going to buy an Apple phone, that will lead me to buy a membership of Apple iTunes, and that will lead me to buy something else, and that's all of them are related together. In those cases, the risks of making that particular buying that Apple phone is very high, and in those cases external search will be promoted, because I'll have to do more external search to find out how much risk is out there. So this risks, how much risk am I going to take, or how much risk aversive or risk repetitive I am, or risk taking I am, that will decide how much external search I am going to do of a particular product. Now, there are certain consumer influences which also will decide how much external search I am going to do, and one of them is the quantity of internal information. Now, when I look at my internal information, when I look at my memory and my experiences, I search for how the information, and I search for these qualities within the information. How much reliable the information that I have in my memory is. How much trustworthy is the information, where in the sense that where is it coming from, what is the source, how much trustworthy is the source, where did I get the information about the particular product. So, I am buying a camera, I have some information about the camera, I will try to find out how much reliable that information is. So, quality of internal information. Also, how much trust do I have in whoever gave me that information about the camera. I will also look for the quantity of information which is available. How much do I know in terms of my memory of the product related information, how much information that I have, and whether that information is sufficient or not, and whether the information that I am having about the particular camera is useful or not. So I might have some information about the camera that upcoming camera that I am going to buy, and in my head or in my memory I have little information, but that is not useful. So, for example, I might have color related information, but I am looking for a camera which does actual good performance. So color related information is not useful at all in those cases, and so I have to do more external searches. Need to acquire information. Now there is a inverted U relationship between knowledge and the extent of information search. And so what I am going to do is do a very simple drawing here, and as you can see, if on this end I have the knowledge about the product, and on this end if I have the extent of information search, my novice people who have very little information about a product will fall here. They have very less knowledge and the extent of search is very low, and experts follow. Experts are on this end, they have high product information, product knowledge, and the search and they also have very little extent of search. They do very little extent of search, but here is where my actual consumer is. Here is where my typical consumer is, because the typical consumer has limited knowledge and limited and some amount of decent amount of information search. So there is a inverted U. So need to acquire information is dependent on where you are, whether you are a novice or whether you are an expert. So if you are just a typical consumer, the need for search is very high. If you are a novice, you have no information as such, so search for information is very less. The need for search for information, extent of search is very less, and the knowledge is also very less. So you might not you might have to move through that curve. Or if you are expert, then you have enough knowledge and the extent for search is there. So the search, the information search, external information search depends upon how much is the need to acquire this information. Confidence in decision making ability. How much confidence does somebody has in the decision making ability? How much do you trust your own decisions, right? How much do you trust how much useful information that you have? So this confidence in decision making depends upon what is the usefulness of information to you, which is providing to you. If you have enough confidence on the in your decision making ability, if you are one of those people who can take a little bit of risk, and you are highly confident that given that limited information or given that information the product is going to work, and you trust yourself in a certain way, then in those cases the external information will be dependent on those factors. Also, locus of control is another consumer influences. For example, there are two types of people. One is called externals, the other is called the internals. There are certain people who actually are dependent on other people, who actually are dependent on, who actually look at other people for getting more information, and so these are the same people who actually look for more external search. On the other hand, there are some people called internals who actually depend on themselves, who rely on themselves, and so those people do not do high external search. And so these externals and internals also are two personality types, and this locus of control basically is a theory of personality types, and that also decides how much external information search will be there. Now there are certain product related informations also, which basically define how and how much the external information search will be. For example, what is the kind of product that somebody is looking at, whether it is specialty goods and services. So specialty, if somebody is looking at specialty goods and services, something that you have strong preference to, for example, you have strong preference to art. Now you want to buy a piece of art and things like that. Now if it is a specialty good, and so here the external information search will be very high, because the product is very dear to you, a strong preference for it, you have strong liking for it, and so external information search will be very high, because you are going to invest a lot of money into it, your involvement will be very high. Similarly, shopping goods and services, for example, major purchases, you are buying your next refrigerator, you are buying your next television set, you are buying your next oven, or something which you are very involved, which involves a lot of money into it. And so these shopping goods and services, how much the shopping goods and services, whether it is a major purchase or a minor purchase, will decide the external search. If it's a major purchase, if it's a lot of money which is going on into buying the product, the next door to door, side by side refrigerator you are buying it, more than a lakh and rupees. And in so those cases, when you're shifting from a smaller refrigerator to a bigger refrigerator which has many functionalities, which requires a lot of money, you will do major information external search, external information search. But if it is not a major search, if it is a food product that you're buying, then the information search will not be there. Also, convenience goods and services, everyday goods. So if the everyday goods, also there is a lot of a lot of factors which decides how this external search influences everyday good buying or convenience goods and buying. If taste, preferences, so those things are there when you are buying an everyday goods and services, then a lot of external search is there. And if on the other hand, if it's a generic item like salt you're buying, like pepper, or if you're buying cinnamon, if these are the things that your oil, if these are the things that you're buying for cooking, they don't have too much choice, they don't have too much things in them, because it does define the taste, but if your taste is dependent on something else. And so the kind of convenience goods and services, everyday goods and services, how much preferability you have to particular thing will decide how much external search you're going to do. Particularly in convenience goods and services, there is very less external information search, because these are just generic items. Now, there are two types of products which are there. There is something called search products, which most essential attributes and benefits can easily be evaluated prior to the purchase, and there are experiences products. And so products and services where the most essential part of the product, benefit of the product, or most essential attribute of the product can be evaluated prior to the purchase. In those cases, the external search will be less, or on the other hand, if the experiences products are there, evaluation cost is so high that direct experiences results in the lowest expenditure of resources. In those cases, it will be low, and vice versa. It's a kind of these two things, whether a product is a search product or experience product, also decides how the external information search will be. There are also something called purchase decision, purchase related decisions, which also decides the amount of external search which is going to happen. Now, I should make it clear that no matter what product you are buying, it is never an internal search, a total internal search. There has to be some external search, but the amount of external search that you have to do will decide on all these factors that we have been discussing. So, there are certain purchase related decision which also influences how much external search is going to happen. Characteristic of the purchase decision: extent to which a number of possible solutions is limited. Now, if the acceptable characteristics sought are narrowly defined, consumers are likely to accept the need for extensive search. If you are looking for a product and the benefits that you are looking at, the attributes that you want, the characteristics that you want in a product is very narrowly defined, or it is very briefly defined, you will look for more information, right? So, you buy a camera, you are looking at whether the chip is CMOS or CCD or some other variant of it, and so you really don't know, or not enough information is provided on these kind of aperture. For example, how much is the aperture, how much is the whether it is a CCD technology, or it is a CMOS technology, or backlighting CMOS technology, or what kind of thing is that. If the information is very less, and if this is what is desirable to you, you will do more external search. Also, if the need for trial to be tried out before it is purchased, consumers are more likely to engage in external search. So, for example, buying a car. Now, in those cases, trial is essential, because you want to really see how the car really works in. And so, in those cases where trial is essential for buying a product, before buying a product you have to see, or clothes, then a trial is necessary because you have to really see if it fits or not. And in those cases, external search is your people are more highly linked in, or highly likely to engage in external search. And those cases in which there is a difficulty of trial, when pre-purchase trial is difficult or impossible, consumers search for reliable information. There are certain kind of products which actually you cannot do a trial. Once you use it, it's yours, kind of a thing. And so, when there is a difficulty of trial for a particular product in terms of its non-availability, or if you open it, you have to really buy it, and those kinds of things, gift items and things like that, then you do more search, because the trial is not available. So, if the product offers more need for a trial, you do more pre-purchase searches. Also, if a product doesn't give you pre-purchase trial, or there is a difficulty in pre-purchase trial, the consumers actually search for reliable and quality of information. Now, how do consumers do external? How do consumers lessen this external search criteria? How do consumers sort of minimize this external search? Now, there are two ways in which it can be done. One is using sets. So, what consumers tend to do is use certain kind of memory sets, and these memory sets lessen the number of external searches done. Now, in terms of sets, there are something called a universal set, where all type of products and all types of product information are available, and so the world is an universal set where those magazines which cover all products of a particular type are information set. So those camera magazines which have a lot of information about all the camera which is available in the market is the universal set. The retrieval set is those where retrieval set is those in which information that the consumer is aware of is there. So there might be a number of brands which is in the market, a number of benefits which are there in the market of every camera brand which is there, but whatever the consumer remembers, whatever the consumer whenever thinks about a camera comes to his mind, whatever product benefits is composed of or is basically the universal or the retrieval set. And then there is something called relevant set or consideration set. This is the set which the consumer accepts. So the consumer might know that there are 6 or 7 type of cameras, there are hundreds of cameras in the market. The consumer might remember only 10 type of cameras and product benefits, but when he actually thinks of buying, he might think about, or he might narrow down to only 2 or 3 camera brands, and that 2 or 3 camera brands which he is focusing on is called the relevant set. So all the product information in the market forms the universal set. The ones that the consumer remembers is the retrieval set, and the ones that he accepts or ones that he considers to buy is called the relevant set. And this is how you narrow down, or this is how a consumer narrow down on information search. Also, irrelevant information impact. Now, consumers selectively look for confirming information that the product and services delivers the desired benefits. Now, consumers are always looking for those information or those packets of information which delivers or which specifies the benefits the product is going to offer to them. For example, if I am looking for an apartment, the word is safety. If I am looking for a toothpaste, the word here is no cavities. If I am looking for let's say a car, the word here is reliability. If I am looking for life insurance, the word is trustworthy, and so all these kinds of words are there. And if an ad is there, if an information search or if a product manufacturer doesn't link these words to the information search, or doesn't provide or forgets to provide, or is not able to do a high linking of these words with a particular product, then the consumer gets confused, and so in those cases the information search is limited. That is how he limits. So those product manufacturers which uses the target word which is related to a particular uses the target benefit word related to a product, consumers remembers them, and the one that doesn't, consumers forget them, and that is how they limit the information search which is there. And also, information deemed irrelevant by its target marketers will weaken consumers' belief concerning the product's ability to deliver. Now, sometimes manufacturers give irrelevant information which is not needed in a product, and so those informations are very conflicting, and when those informations are provided to consumers, what the consumers think is that this information is something which I don't like, and so or that creates a confusion in the consumer. As soon as the consumer understands or finds out irrelevant information about a particular product that he is not wanting, that he doesn't want in that particular product, he actually minimizes or thinks lesser of the product and starts moving away from the product, and that leads to lesser search activity, or that decides how he maintains his external search, or how he decides his external search, extent of external search. Now, there are generally 2 different kind of marketplace information source, and there are 2 different ways of doing it. One is there are independent sources in the market, and there is market dependent sources, and the way of doing this who provides information is face to face and media. So this is how the information gets, and this is how the sources are there which provides the information, and that this particular thing decides how the information search will be decided. For example, if you look at face to face, so one of the way of doing a face to face or providing face to face information in the market which is independent or which is personal, a face to face method of providing an independent information about product in the market is your friends, relatives. So your friends, your relatives, your brothers and sisters, or your nearby neighbors, all those people, when they give you information about a particular product, this is called the face to face method, and the information that you get, the review that you get, is independent of market. Now, a way in which media can do this kind of information, media can provide you this kind of information which is not independent of the advertiser, which is independent of any kind of market influences, or which is through an independent source, is something called reviews. So all those editorial reviews that you get in magazines, in websites, people express their views, and those cases of in those cases the media is, or the editorial reviews which are into the book or into the internet or into some product site, the reviews that you see, this is basically a media way of giving you independent information about a particular kind of information, a particular kind of product information. Now there are certain market controlled or market advocated sources which also provide you with information. For example, a face to face way of market control information to consumers is salespersons and telemarketing. In here what happens is, a person talks to you and gives you information about a particular product or product benefit, but this information that you're getting is controlled by the market. If you look into this here, these are your friends and relatives, and so they are not controlled by market. The information that you tend to get is independent of market. But when a salesperson or telemarketing person gives you information about product or product benefit, it is controlled by the market, so it is a face to face way. Now through a media, this kind of information that reaches you, which is market control, or product information which reaches you, which is market control, is mass media advertising, in store display, in store informations and package labels. And these are the ways through which information, product related information, reaches you through the media. So what through the market and through the media. So basically two ways in which a consumer can get information, either through a face to face, directly talking to someone, or through the media, be it the internet, be it the magazine, be it some other kind of some other way of the media, be it a newspaper. So other things of how you get is other than the face to face way of getting information about a product. And so this information about the product can come from independent sources or market control sources. And so what we looked at here is that the two way of how information is given to you, and the two sources, how do they give information to you. And so this whole chart or this whole matrix will decide how information search is basically done, or how much external information search will be done. So what we did in the present lecture is we actually looked at how information search is there, how consumers do information search in the market. We looked at a number of search types, we looked at internal searches, we looked at external searches. We looked at all those factors within the external search which actually modulates, which actually increases or decreases the amount of external search is there. And so we looked at three factors. We looked at situational factors, we looked at consumers factors, we also looked at product factors and purchase related factors. And at the end of it, we looked at how does information sources, different kind of information sources, decide what kind of information search you are going to do in the market, or to the extent of information search you are going to the market. Now in the upcoming next lecture, we will go into step 3 of the EKB model, where we'll do or we'll look into what is alternate evaluation, how does alternate evaluation happen, and how does alternate evaluation lead to choice. So we'll meet again in the 5th lecture, where we look into step 3 of the EKB model and all those psychological factors which are going to decide how does a consumer does alternate evaluation of products. So this is for now. Thank you.